Hey, what's up everyone? It's Sunday night and we're at Bat City, so that must mean it's time to wind down your weekend. As always, I'm your host, Small Press Shann, here to talk about all of this week's indie and small press comics that came out. I'm super excited. There's been some really good books this week, and some really exciting news for indie comics and comics in general because the Eisner Award nominations dropped. And if you don't know what those are basically the Oscars for comic books, and we'll probably talk about them a lot more throughout the night, and a big wrap up towards the end on that, gearing up for what will inevitably be the Small Press Shann Eisner Award show coming to you soon, where we talk about all of the nominations this year. But we're going to talk about this week's comics this week, and we're going to kick it off first and foremost by talking about this wine, which this is Domaine Bousquet. It's a Malbec, which is another type of red wine. This is an Argentinian one. It actually says it's grown at the foothills of the Andes at 4,000 feet. And it's supposed to have mushroom, fig, and berry aromas in it, which makes a medium body and velvety tannins. So I have no idea what this is, so we're going to give it a try and see what we think. I thought that was going to be a sweet wine when I originally saw the label and saw that it was not a Cab Sav or Pinot Noir, but that is not sweet at all. I guess that's kind of that velvety tannins. I feel like anytime they mention the tannins in a red wine, it's not sweet. It's usually pretty much on the spicy side, but
it does have a spicy kick to it.
Mm-hmm. And this is completely, like it says, it's completely organic, which I don't really know the difference between organic grapes and like regular grapes, because I feel like all fruit should be considered naturally organic, but apparently it's not. And so, 100% organically grown grapes, and it's actually really, really good. This has okay, so I don't know anything about wine points. I'm going to be honest about that. This has 90 points from Wine Spectator, so this was like a really highly scored wine, and Matt was like, we have to try it because it's got all this like quality points, whatever these points mean. You could just throw points on there, and I think people would believe that it was good automatically. You could be making up this point system, but it actually does live up to the points because it's actually really good. So before I take another drink, I'm going to share this live stream so people can join us. So let me toss that up there really fast. Boom, ba-da-dum, boom, boom.
You could get the wine at Costco.
Ooh, it's a Costco wine. Wasn't it like super cheap?
Yeah, it was on special for $7.99.
Holy cow, $8 for the bottle of wine. It doesn't taste like an $8 bottle of wine because that's a very strong thing.
It's a $16 bottle of wine, but it's on sale.
Oh, that's a big sale. That's like half off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, kudos to you for picking that out, because this is really good. And I'm not surprised that Matt would find the wine that said it has mushroom aromas in it.
I didn't even see that.
Well, it's got mushies. So
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. All right, so we're going to talk about some things that happened this week before we jump into the comics. First up, we had the awesome opportunity this week, just yesterday actually, to go to the Imagine School in North Manatee to participate in their first ever Schoolwide Con. And let me just tell you, we talk about how teachers and librarians are superheroes all the time, but this school had so many amazing teachers just show up and volunteer. They were in costume. They were ready to present different activities. They were so excited. I guess they have a pop culture club that two of the teachers started, and it has over 63 members at this elementary to middle school charter school that they go to. And it was so amazing. Even the principal was there participating and stuff. I love to see schools where the whole education team is like, hey, let's do this awesome thing for the kids. And I learned that the 5th grade field trip, end of the year trip, and the 8th grade trip were both the day before, and that the 8th graders and the 8th grade teachers who went on the trip didn't get back until 2 in the morning, and yet all of the 8th grade teachers still showed up to be a part of this event the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning. So these people got home, turned around, came back, and did it again to make sure these kids had an awesome time. So super excited, and a shout out to Sam and the art kids, because the art class, two of the students in the art class made us this awesome Bat City beer. This is so great. And they had this, they had posters all over the place, but we had a classroom where we were doing workshops. We did 2 different workshops throughout the day, and this was hanging outside of the classroom for our workshops. And I thought that was really great. And then they rolled it up and gave it to us to bring back with us. So you definitely know this is going to be hanging in the store for sure soon. And thank you to the art students. And then the other thing that was really cool is the workshops themselves. We had so many parents participate. I'm always trying to convince the parents that are sticking around that they need to be a part of the workshops, and I didn't even have to try that hard at this event. There was, in the end, I think, between kids and adults, there was over 50 people that participated in our 2 workshops. We filled up a classroom twice and then had standing room during one of the workshops. It was so great. So thankful to be invited out for that. Thank you so much to the Imagine School North Manatee for having us, and we can't wait for next year. And to all of our teacher and librarian friends, good luck for your last week of school. You got 5 days left. You can do this. We believe in you. Your summer break is almost here, and you've definitely earned it this year. So congrats to all the teachers and librarians and educators who are almost done for the year. Also, this week, we had the opportunity to host the Friendly City Forward monthly meetup, which is a great opportunity for business managers and owners who want to continue to further the city of Bradenton in great and wonderful ways to come together and network about all the ideas that they've got going on. And we were fortunate to get to host that. We had so many people in the shop this week for that. We talked about everything going on in Bradenton, all the great things that we are doing, all the things we want to do. And of course, we talked about Old Manatee, our neighborhood, and all of the awesome things that are building up over here and how everybody can be a part of it. It was so great. So shout out to Wade and Catherine and all of the people from Friendly City, the Friendly City Forward, who allowed us the opportunity to host. And thank you to everybody who came out. And if you haven't visited, everybody over here in Old Manatee, Loving Hands, Segunda Vida, Oscura, Vintage Vine, the Central Cafe, Fernona, the new Hungarian restaurant, and of course Edelweiss, and Spare Kitchen, Petrichor Mushrooms. There's so many things coming up in Old Manatee. Now is the time to come out and hang out. And speaking of great places you should go visit, don't forget to check out Mysterium Escape Rooms over in Sarasota. I was talking to some people about this just today. They were like, yeah, Shannon, but is it actually fun? And I was like, are you kidding me? This was so much fun. If I could find an excuse to do an escape room with people every time that I could find a spare minute at Mysterium, I would totally be in. It's so much fun. And I'm not usually an escape room person. Matt and I were we're not really into escape rooms. And Nick was I will change your mind. And we went over there, and Nick has totally changed our minds. We're all in. And even if you don't want to do an escape room, you can just go hang out in their lobby, because they've got drinks, they've got food, they've got virtual reality games, and they've got emulators for pretty much every video game you could ever want to play along the wall. It's super cool. And if you go Monday through Thursday and you take one of these flyers or a receipt from Bat City and tell them you came because Bat City told you to Monday through Thursday, you will save 20% off your escape room experience. I'm definitely planning my big Bat City takeover of Mysterium Escape Rooms someday. And I know Mysterium Escape Rooms is planning their secret takeover of Bat City one night. So things are coming. Don't you worry. But you should go see Mysterium.
They have their new Escape Room 2 School for Wizard School open.
It's open? Oh my gosh. So if you are a fan of wizarding things, you should go check that out. And it's cool because it's on the 3rd floor, which I haven't even been up to yet. So guess I know what we're doing soon, because I really want to check that out. Also, this Wednesday coming up from 7 to when we're done talking, we have $1 book club here at Bat City, and we are going to be reading The Image First of Isola. It's $1 to buy the comic. It's free to join the event. So if you haven't read the comic and you want to check it out, we're only reading this one issue, and it's only going to cost you $1. You can pick it up on Wednesday, go home, read it, come back, or you can just join us and listen to other people talk about it and see if it's something you'd want to check out. I love $1 book club because it gives people an opportunity to read something that they normally wouldn't pick up. And we've had so many people already. We've done 2 since we've been here in Bradenton. And in those two, we've already had people who've been like, I have changed my mind completely on this creative team. And over the years that we've been doing $1 Book Club as Bat City, I have seen so many people just completely alter their sub list in excitement for new books that they check out during $1 Book Club. So it's a great way to find the title that is right for you. And speaking of finding the title that's right for you, as soon as I take a drink of this wine, we are going to talk about some more titles you might want to check out. Yes, all right. Okay, so we've got not as many books as usual. It's been like a light couple of weeks, which kind of happens after Free Comic Book Day while we gear up for all the books that they teased us with. So that's not to say I don't have a stupid amount of picks of the week because I just love comic books. But we're going to talk about all the books that came out from indie and small press publishers, starting with Moriarty, Clockwork Empire. And this is from Titan Comics, which is a publisher that we don't talk too much about, and I think we should start talking about them a little bit more, but they pick up a lot of they're British publishers, so they pick up a lot of the British things, like Sherlock and Doctor Who, and this is issue 3, I'm going to get that completely wrong, 4, my hand was covering it the whole time, it was on the cover. This is issue 4 of Moriarty, and basically, if you know the Sherlock Holmes universe, you know that he is always fighting against a mastermind named Moriarty. And in this, Moriarty was killed prior to the book starting. And that has never actually meant the end of Moriarty. But in this particular series, he is facing what he thinks might be an operative of people pretending to be Moriarty. And on top of that, while they are trying to make these automatons that are going to take over the world, as per usual in Sherlock Holmes type stories, he is dealing with the fact that the technology and the way they are making them is coming from a certain Dr. Jekyll and a problem that he has had that has led him to rampage the entire city. One of my favorite things about Sherlock is that they always bring other literary classics into play into the Sherlock universe, and the fact that Sherlock Holmes is a literary classic, we've almost forgotten at this point. He's become such a pop culture icon, especially with like the Benedict Cumberbatch show, that I think we forget that Sherlock is actually a fantastic literary experience. But the cool thing about these books is they also come with a centerfold poster, so 40 years from now, you're going to be excited if you leave your centerfold poster in here, because you'll get that complete when everybody else doesn't, when you get your Moriarty books graded in 40 years. But super cool. This is a great story. They're oversized every issue, and yet they're still only $4.99. And if you are a Sherlock fan, this is a series you do not want to miss, because you are getting all of the classics of Sherlock Holmes mixed in with just some really great art. So check it out. I love that Mr. Hyde cover. I love them using him essentially like the Hulk in the issue too. Up next, we have Immortal Sergeant issue 5 from Image Comics. This is from your team that brought you I Killed Giants, which a lot of people will always come in and say if they have to recommend one book, they recommend I Killed Giants. And this is the story of a very crass old man who is retiring from the police force, and nothing that he does can be considered politically correct. His son hates him, his daughter-in-law hates him, everybody hates him, and he is just like a terrible, basically racist man and misogynistic man, and he hates everything. But on the day that he's supposed to retire, he realizes he can't do it because there's one case that he never solved, and it is the death of a little girl who was an infant. And he just can't lead himself to retire from the situation until he does it. And his son ends up on basically a cross-country or multi-country road trip with him on accident, following along as the man tries to hunt down the last remaining clues and witnesses that he may be able to follow to stop him. And the question that the son has is, what are you going to do? You don't have jurisdiction here. And in this issue, we learn that the dad is like, it doesn't matter. I don't need jurisdiction because I'm not taking him in. I'm just going to make sure we get justice. And the son is learning a lot about his dad. I like that we're also seeing the wife back at home with her mother-in-law, dealing with learning like how everybody dealt with it, because she's so you know, she's so far on the side of, I want to make sure that everything is correct, and I'm so feminist forward, and I'm so this and that she kind of became judgy in it. And so you get to have these conversations with, like, just because you chose this path doesn't mean that somebody else didn't go through everything you did and come out on the other side and learning about people and figuring out where people are. But it also left us with a major cliffhanger about something that we don't know about the relationship between the son and the dad. And I can't wait to see what this is. This has been a very emotional journey. If you've ever had an issue with your parent and you thought, like, I don't know if my parents and me will ever work it out, this is going to be basically your therapy session to deal with those issues. Up next, we have The Last Barbarians, issue 4 from Image and the Shadowline imprint. And this is the story of a girl who, I just almost sang that. This is the story of a girl who's lives in a world where everybody is some kind of, basically like a D&D classification. Like, you have your druids, you have your knights, you have your, you know, all of the different things, the mages, and she doesn't fall into any one category, so she doesn't really have a guild to belong in, and so she's just trying to protect her brother who doesn't fit in anywhere either. And they end up taking a gig with a man who is shady beyond belief, and now they have discovered this little boy that he wanted to save, and it seems like this little boy may have some magical powers, and she wants to make sure the little boy stays safe, and the man might be trying to sell the little boy for his own personal gain. We don't really know yet, but in this issue particularly, we find out that there are zombie-type creatures in here, and they have been told that they cannot be healed in any way, and magical powers can do magical things. And a lot happens. I don't want to spoil it. A lot happens with a lot of our characters, and we see a lot of movement forward in this issue, and yet at the same time, we're seeing a lot of the characters kind of crumble apart in their connections to each other. And so I think that in this next issue is going to be very tumultuous for this. But if you are a fan of things like D&D questing, if you are a fan of Conan and any of those kinds of stories, or if you just really like fantasy books, this is going to be a great one for you. And we're only 4 issues in, so there's still time. Up next, we have Mosley, issue 4 from Boom Studios. This is the story of a man who helped people create Skynet. The government was looking for people to help them program robots to understand human emotions, and he took on the job. And now fast forward to the future, and the robots have taken over everything, and he hates robots now. His wife has joined the cult of people who are like the resistance, and his daughter works right in the heart of it all. And he is given a special power that helps him get this magic hammer and basically go Thor on all of these robots and kind of destroy each and every one of them. And now he has been fighting the good fight, and things are not going to go well. And we've now learned what the robots' sentient desire is, what they really want to do, and how they kind of want to destroy and enslave humanity. We learn their secret evil plan, and we see whether or not this family can come together from all of their divided units and start working towards the destruction of these robots before it's too late. It's really good, and every issue just gets better and better. And you've got John Francis Bellew on colors, who does a lot of Scotty Young's coloring, so it's really bright and really vivid, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Up next, we have No One, issue 3 from Image, and of course your super massive imprint. This is in, like all things, in your Radiant Black universe, but not in any way, shape, or form connected. So if you are not a Radiant Black fan and you see that, I want you to know once again, you don't have to know anything about Radiant Black to read anything in this story. But this is the story of a vigilante called No One, and no one knows who he is. And there's rumors that he may be a police officer's son. There's rumors that he has all of these copycat killers, and all these copycat killers maybe they're the real No One. We really don't know, but we're kind of following the police officer who is possibly the father of the killer. And we're also following a journalist who wants to tell the story and who wants to kind of bring truth back into journalism. and she has a podcast in the comic book, and the podcast actually does exist in real life, and it stars Patton Oswald and Rachel Lee Cook if you want to expand the universe of your reading. But this is a really great book, and right now we're kind of just in that classic detective story of like everybody putting pieces together and kind of trying to figure out who no one is. And honestly, at this point, I'm starting to wonder if no one is actually the bad guy, or if we're seeing maybe the people that he's tackling are actually maybe not as good as the media wants us to believe they are. Up next, we have Order and Outrage, issue 3 of 4 from Dark Horse Comics, and this is the newest Jim Starlin book. And I know that's such a weird thing to say in 2023, but here we are. And this is the story of a girl who was promised that she needed, like, who lives in a world where a group called the Order is trying to basically eradicate anybody that doesn't fit into their mold. And she is taken to live with a woman in the woods who kind of rescues her. And that woman tells her, you can assimilate and you can fit into their mold if you want to. And once you do, you can destroy them from the inside out. And we've kind of been seeing back and forth between the past and the future and the now in each issue. And this one does a little bit of that, and then kind of also gives us finally a connecting point between all of those and lets us see who she might become and how she might be able to bring that order in. And of course, we know that it's going to be in the next issue. I love it because I just said bring that order in, and Order is the bad guys and she is Outrage. And I think that's super cool that it's like the person who's standing up against the people who are basically having this genocide of all the other ones is actually considered outrage to them, but in reality, she's the one that's trying to do something good. I am going to take another drink. This is what I'm drinking. It is Domaine Bousquet. It's a Malbec. It's really good. Every time I drink it, I'm like, that's better than I thought it was. So it's one of those that definitely... Wait, last week it was like a wine that they said, like, oh, you should pair it with this. And I was like, I bet that if you paired it with that, all of those, like, oversweet notes would disappear. This one is like, you could just drink this. You don't need to pair it with anything. Well, it would pair very nicely with most things. Like, I could just drink this. It doesn't have too much of an acidic taste. It doesn't have too much of a sweet taste. Like, you could just drink this as your drink. Which I am, so... I'm going to move that back over there while we go to more comics. Up next, we have Frank Miller's Pandora, and this is issue 5 from Frank Miller Presents, his new press that he started with Dan DiDio. This is the story of a young girl who lives on the edge of the forest, and her grandfather has like no memory, and her mother run a boarding house, all of the makings of a great young adult novel. And to keep with that, she one day meets a random boy on the edge of the woods, follows him in, and now she is trapped in this adventure. She's met these little cute woodland creatures, she's met goblins, she's found this, at the end of the last issue, she found a cube. It's kind of like a cosmic cube, but they call it the relic. And it has changed everything to where suddenly all the people who have been mean to her forever, all the people who were trashing her mom and stealing from her and doing all these terrible things, everybody's just, the grandfather being mad at her for going in the woods, everybody is just being completely and totally nice to her. And she finds out that there's something connected to this relic, that how it's from possibly another world and how it's going to change everything. And when she goes to figure that out, she ends up possibly in more trouble than she could possibly have wanted to even ever imagine. This is such a great story. Emma Kubert's art is phenomenal. I'm actually gonna, I don't know if I showed it, but I just love even just like the way she draws the little flowers, like following behind her. I think Emma Kubert was just made to draw young adult novels into comic book form, and I think that all young adult novels that get adapted should come to Emma Kubert for art, or Gabriel Piccolo, who does all of the Beast Boy Loves Raven. They just both are just masters of this particular age range art style and capturing that emotion. Up next, we have Tower, issue 4 from A Wave Blue World. This is the story of a girl who wakes up inside of a tower. Just as easy as that. But she finds out that she's essentially in a video game, and she has to fight for her life in order to survive. You're able to pick a weapon, you're able to pick an animal, and use all of these different things to help you through the challenge. And each person kind of teams up with other people, and so they end up in suits that match. But over the course of the game, people start to betray each other because they realize only one can survive. And in the last couple of issues, we've learned that there is somebody behind this game. We don't know who, but a lot of it is starting to slowly seep out, and maybe the people running the game for the creators don't necessarily agree with them. And there's a dark entity that is moving through the game, and nobody knows where it's from and what it's doing, but we have finally come face to face with it in this issue. And I have no idea if anybody is going to make it out alive. This could definitely be one of those books where when you get to the end, you were like, well, I was really rooting for that person, but they didn't make it. Because every issue, it's like 3 people like just deteriorate, and you're like, oh, I really thought that person was a main character. So you don't know, like, it's very Hunger Games-esque, like there's going to be only one, and I hope that it's the person that I think is the main character, but it's a really interesting read, and it's you're like constantly like up on like, oh, I gotta get into this person, and then you're like, no, maybe I should not hook my wagon to them. Like Game of Thrones, the second you say you like somebody, they just decide to kill that person. Up next we have Dark Ride issue 6 from is it Image? It's Image Skybound, yeah. I don't even want to talk about this because I know Matt didn't read it, but I love this cover. So, with all the different things, but this is from Joshua Williamson, and this is the story of, basically, what if Walt Disney didn't want to own Disney World with cute and cuddly animals, but wanted to create a theme park out of all of the most horrific things in the world. And in that time, he determined that it was also a great way to kill people. And we get a backstory finally of the main character's parents, mom specifically, because we've all known that Arthur Dante is essentially our Walt Disney so far. And in this particular issue, we have been following around the case for, I'm going to try to like not show the end. We've been following Sam, who is Samhain. He's one of Dante's kids, and the girl whose brother was murdered in the park, and they are trying to investigate the situation, and they have followed a man into where he stores the trash because they are looking for some clues as to anything that they can use against him, and everything after that is a giant spoiler. So they have just been trying to find the answers to this mystery, and at the same time, Sam's sister Halloween is super into whatever her dad does. She's all about the murder and the mayhem, and so she's kind of just going with it and kind of throwing her brother under the bus as much as possible for being a part of this. And we're one arc in. There is already a trade for the first 4 issues, so if you want to start at the beginning, you can get it in single issue form, you can get it in trade form, but this has gotten way more intense than I really ever thought it was going to be in the first 4 issues. I thought we were kind of just going to have like a murder mystery and it was going to be solved really quickly, and then we were going to go back to like a different happenstance in the park, but now this is getting more and more intense. And even the letter at the end was like, woohoo, like, let's do this. And I was like, that's exactly how I feel after the end of this issue. So if you're not reading Dark Ride, grab it. I love it. Honestly, like, I love all the covers on the issues, so I'm like, grab the issues. But the trade paperback does come with a map that they organized of all of the theme park, and that's super cool too. So I don't know, whatever way you like to read, grab those first 4 issues and read it because you're gonna love it. And if you're reading Dawn of DC right now and you're looking for something else from Joshua Williamson, that is a great way to go. Up next, we have End After End number 7 from Vault Comics. This is another high fantasy adventure for those of you who are really looking for that. This is going to be more on almost your Lord of the Rings-esque side. This is about a human who ends up inside of this world and he has to basically help them find some important things, put it all together, stop some bad guys, natural questing kind of experience. And he's paired with some people who have just not been kind to anyone, including themselves. They haven't been very helpful. One of the guys is constantly making these ridiculous rules. So he's great. He's the comic relief of the thing, because he's like, rule number 127, don't offer your drink to other people. And they're like, you're just making it up. He's like, yeah, I'm making up all of them. Like, of course I'm making them up. But in this particular issue, they've come to a place called Haven, and Haven is the only safe spot in the entire world. It's being completely unaffected by this war. And they find out that Haven can only have so many people in it. And so a guy who calls himself Fraction within the story is the person on the ruling council who, no surprise, is dissenting against the vote to not help everybody else in the war. And him and his constituents are the fraction of people who don't agree. And so they now have to send Walt in, who is our human, to trade places with him and go into there and try to convince all of the people of Haven that that they should help and fight against the war, or at least give them the ability to fight that war themselves. But this is great. It's such a high fantasy story that take your time, get issue 1, read it slowly, and then go into that. It doesn't have any of the high fantasy language, but it kind of has a little bit of the names that are a little bit tough sometimes. But at the same time, it's more like your D&D, like approachable, almost movie cinematic-esque version of a high fantasy, where it's digestible in the quick form that a comic provides, and the pictures definitely help keep you going with the story. So up next, we have Don't Spit in the Wind, issue 2 from Madcave, and a book that is always on Matt's picks. So if you want to talk to him about how much he loves this book, this is a great one to toss in when you come to the store. This is the story of our world and how we destroy it, essentially. And everything is covered in trash, and you've got these people who are cleaning out trash. I love this guy who's like the end is nigh guy, but he's made it all out of trash. And in this particular time, we've got, it's almost Wall-E-esque, but for adults. Because you've got the guys who are cleaning up the trash, and they kind of see everything that's actually happening out in the real world. And there is some really bad, like, destruction, and the guys are being put in danger. And there's a scene where they go to the corporate people, and they're like, hey, really bad things are happening to the people out in the field, and all the people who live in these, like, poor communities. And they're like, yeah, and what is it that you want us to do about it? And they're like, well, you need to help them. And they're like, we don't have additional funding to help them. And they're like, you haven't given them any funding. And they're like, yeah, well, that's how we want that to work out. And they're like, well, if we don't have those people, then who's going to, at the very least, do this work for us to keep us safe? And they're like, there'll be other people. And they just kind of, like, ignore, like, the people in need entirely. And you just kind of wonder who's going to be the saving person. Yes, sir.
And themselves.
Because
they're running out of food, but the higher-ups are still eating it all.
And they even say that. They're like, you're running out of food. There's no more stuff left. Like, people are being gluttonous, and the guy's, like, eating, like, 3 donuts in the course of that scene. He's like, what does this have to do with me? And it's like, you're eating all the food. Like, you are the problem. And so it's such a great book. It's got some amazing, like, storytelling and great commentary. And you get this Stefano Cardicelli art on it, which is just super cool and a great way to do it. I love how hyper detailed his art is, because it makes for such great images of this world in destruction. So I also like that she's got the, like, Save the Planet shirt on and everything, and it's, like, in her, like, trash helmet. Up next, we have The Gimmick, issue 3 from Ahoy Comics. This is for you wrestling fans. This is a different look at wrestling world. This is a guy who's been a wrestler forever, but also has super strength. And in issue 1, he's in a wrestling match, and he kind of gets a little too actually really mad at the guy, and ends up punching him so hard that he, like, busts his face on him, and the guy dies. And he's like, what do I do? And so he goes out on the run, and now he is hiding with a girl whose father was also a former wrestler, and he's kind of, like, hey, can I stay with you? And she's like, yeah, but you're going to need to get a job. And then they both decide to go do some luchador style wrestling. Meanwhile, the guy's ex-wife, who used to be a wrestler, is stuck with their son, who is starting to just like have the same elements of superhero-esque powers. And she's like, what am I gonna do? Like, I have this baby. I never wanted to be a single mom. I don't want to be, he's got superpowers. I don't have a way to make any money. And her former mother-in-law is like, why don't you go back to wrestling? And so you get all this like real world drama and actually like almost no wrestling. So it's like all the behind the scenes, because you always see on the wrestling shows, like, you know, it looks like they're so connected, but then you actually find out that in real life, they're all connected in a different way. And so I love this, because it's like, what if we focused on the way they were connected in real life, and we put this like murder investigation and everything going on, all the drama that you see in the ring was actually the real life drama, and then there's actually no drama in the ring at all. And it's actually like them fighting wrestling. So it's a great way to do a wrestling story at a time when we're seeing a lot of wrestling stories come out. And you know, Ahoy always has some great humor and good story points. The next book is The Mighty Barbarians, issue 2 from Ablaze. This is not to be confused with The Last Barbarians. And it's also not to be confused with Barbaric. However, I could see how you could get confused, because it's actually written by the same writer as Barbaric. So I really think that he's making an ultimate play to get Conan rights. I really think he wants to officially write Conan, but he's writing Cole, the Conqueror, right now.
Is this Cole?
It is Cole.
Oh.
It does have Cole in it. It has Cole. It has Morgan Le Fay. It has a barbarian named Nanook who can turn into a polar bear. It has Anasi, and it has Burka. And so we have so many Vikings that if you know any Viking stories, you kind of have recognized, or any of those mythological stories, you see some of that. But this is those people teaming up all together so that they can actually go out on an adventure. And right now in this particular issue, they realize that they have to go to hell, and they have to fight against essentially Hades and try to get what it is that they need from the afterlife. And there is some really cool scenes of Morgana Le Fay doing like magic, and it kind of looks very Doctor Strange-esque. This is what it looks like in hell. It's just your classic barbarian adventure, and unlike Barbaric, that kind of hinges on like the humor of that world, this is actually the adventure story itself. This is them teaming up. This is them learning to trust each other. It's us learning what their adventure is, and them having to deal with it. And it's like, ultimately who's gonna betray it. Like, I keep waiting for somebody in the group to betray them. And I just know that it's going to come, because this is set up for all of the classic adventures. But they say, like, this is before they were superheroes. So this is kind of before any of them were at that point where they were, like, famous for being the different characters in literary history or barbarian history that they've kind of come together. And so they're all kind of like, oh, I do this. And the other ones are like, okay, well, nobody cares who you are. And kind of gives us a little insight to some of those characters that you may have seen historically and literarily from different points in time. I'm going to take another drink really fast. Also, I will read anything with Morgana Le Fay in it. I love Morgan. All right. Up next, we have Junction Jones and the Corduroy Conspiracy, issue 2 from Scout Comics. This is one of those books that stars a cat. So I'm always like, ooh, cat book, and I get excited. I'm not gonna lie. That is the easiest way to get me to check out your book. But this is a man who is partnered with a cat who can speak, and they are they are investigating a situation that is happening. There has been a murder, and there's some conspiracies behind it, and so they are trying to do this murder investigation. And in this issue, they go after basically like a ringmaster of a really seedy circus in this time period, in this weird like interdimensional place that they live. And while they're interviewing the guy and trying to figure out like what is going on, what his role is, he takes them on this long drawn out journey of his connection. And what I love is he's telling you the story but you're actually seeing it play out in the art. So as the reader, we know everything that he's lying about, but of course they don't, because they're just hearing him tell the story. And so it's so interesting to see the parallels of like, oh, and then this happened, but I was there to make sure that everything went down okay. And it's like the guy is the one that's actually robbing everybody. And then we see a big shoot 'em out action adventure scene at the end where it's like, oh, we realize that y'all are lying, and also I've just been stalling this whole time to hold you hostage until my people could get here. And we get the two having to fight their way out in order to go on to the next point where they can find the next clue in their murder mystery. It's such an interesting buddy cop experience because it is a talking cat and a salty man, and so... And it's in, like I said, it's like in this weird parallel world where there's like alien kind of creatures and everything else. So if you haven't checked it out, we're only on issue 2, so it's still time to jump in. Up next, we have A Legacy of Violence, issue 5 from Madcave. This is the story of a doctor who joins like a Doctor Without Borders after seeing some really crazy stuff. He learns about something called Unit 731, and he wants to go and figure out what it is. So he goes off on this adventure to join these doctors in another country, and people start dying, and in very gruesome, disgusting ways. And while he thinks maybe he should get away from all of that, he's also like, I might be the only one who's got the stomach to solve this mystery. And he's kind of trying to see if he can stick it out. Other people are starting to notice that things are happening, and in this particular issue, there is no denying that something else is happening. We all saw it in a very gruesome way, and Andrea Moody's art is perfect for it with the splashes of blood in that watercolor. But we also learned the backstory of Unit 731 and all of the mind control and things that are happening to these people, and why. We don't really know why, but we are seeing how, and we start to see that he's definitely not going to give up on solving this, and that there's really no choice. Even if he wanted to, like, he's kind of stuck in it now. There's no way out, and I don't know where this is going, but it's getting more and more dark and bloody as it gets there. So if you're queasy, don't read this book, because it definitely got, like, first page of the issue or second page of the issue was like already like super graphic horror movie kind of style. Up next, Oswald and the Star Chaser, Oswald and the Star Chaser, issue 2 from Scout. I'm gonna get there, I swear. Oswald and the Star Chaser. See if I say it like 4 times, maybe it'll happen. This is a fun adventure story for those who are kind of in that I want to accomplish something, but I don't know if I'm ever going to get there mentality. Because this follows a young guy who is a knight, and he's very excited that he's a knight, and he's determined to gather heroes and stop bad things from happening. And in the very first issue, he teams up with someone named Star Chaser and gets on Star Chaser's ship, and they are now going around the different planets and trying to rally these heroes. And of course, Star Chaser is actually somebody who's been out in the world and is like, hey, being in the world is dangerous. Don't tell people you're a knight. Don't tell people what your name is. Don't talk to anybody, actually, and just let me do all the work. And of course, this young, naive guy is like, hello there, hero. I am one of you, here to save the day, and gets them in trouble everywhere they go. This is kind of like a very funny Star Wars, where you are looking at if, Anakin or Luke had been just like walking into everywhere and was like, I'm a Jedi Knight, don't you want to join us? And trying to recruit people, and the Empire is there at every turn, like, ready to kill him. And it's like, please stop talking. You're just destroying everything, and you're never actually going to save anybody or anything if you don't shut your mouth. It's so much fun. It's hilarious on every page. If you're just looking for a fun adventure that you're going to laugh your way through, something else to come out of your, like, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of mentality, like if you just saw the movie and you don't spoil it in the comments because nobody likes somebody who spoils things, and you're like, I need some more funny knight stuff, like space knights in my life, this is going to be a book for you. Up next, we have Fallen issue 3 from Red 5. This is the story of the gods, all of them, the different pantheons coming together in modern America, and each one is basically a gang within it, or a mob, or whatever you want to call it, in our society. And at the beginning of issue 1, we find out that Zeus has been murdered. And we don't know why, but we assume that it must be another god. And a former ward of Zeus, who has become a detective, has been hired in this issue specifically by Aphrodite to hunt down the person who may have killed him. But everybody else in the Greek pantheon wants him to stay as far away from this murder investigation as possible. And so he's got a lot of the Greek gods after him. He's got a lot of the Norse gods after him. He's just got a lot of really angry people. And the Council of all the gods is trying to get them to get everything in line. But before that happens, we might see a lot more gods fall. And this is becoming really, like, I have no idea who's doing it at all. And the only person that's investigating it doesn't get to investigate anything. So we're not finding the clues that we need. But we're seeing, like, 2 different, like, directions that we're being pulled in. Sometimes more than that. And there's so many layers to what's going on in this story that I can't wait to see how they solve them. But I don't know how we're going to put them all together. But I can't wait. Can't wait to see where we go. It's only 6 issues. We're halfway through, and I definitely feel like halfway through I'm on, like, a bigger cliffhanger than I expected to be, with more questions than answers. Did this actually end? Let me see. Did it end? Did it end? It felt like we were getting close. No. Okay, good. Up next is Fear of a Red Planet, issue 4 from Aftershock. The next issue will be our last issue. And this has been all about a colony on Mars, and they have been dealing with one of their own being murdered, and it was kind of a hard thing because nobody liked the person that was murdered. He was one of the scientists that everybody hated. So it's like, okay, well, we have to investigate because we can't just let murder happen. But every time they investigated somebody, a different group of people on the planet would get mad about it. And so now we've come to a point where somebody has actually just come forward and said, I did it. I'm the one that killed them. I'm responsible. And they, like, have the proof and they can see it, but they know that there's more to it than that. And so while we should have been wrapping up our investigation, we're actually finding out that there is a whole bunch more to it than we ever could have thought. And the more interesting thing is what that more is. You just opened up a big giant can of worms at the end of this issue where it's like, hey, we may or may not know who did the murder, but now that we're trying to figure out the why and we have an idea of that, this just got, like, explosive, and we're going to see how they wrap it all up in the next issue because things are getting crazy on Mars. Up next, we have The Giant Kaiju, issue 2, and I'm going to try to find a single page inside of this book that I can show you on the internet. But basically, this is what if kaijus were on drugs and were really vile creatures. And this particular kaiju is tearing up the city in a very unique way. And the only way that they can stop this is they have brought in a man who used to have a mech suit and had made this technology to stop kaiju, and they have found him, and they are trying to get him to the place where he used to work so that he may stop the kaiju before it's too late. And the problem is that anytime this kaiju even, like, poops on things, it spouts more kaiju. Like, the kaiju that we're used to are basically what comes out of, like, the turds of this giant kaiju. It's absurd. It's absurd in all of the ways that you want your absurd book to be absurd. And I can't really show you anything else, but, like, it's funny because they are running this emotional journey of this man through the story and him trying to protect his own family while he is trying to fight this kaiju. So we're going to see some actual kaiju battle in the next book, though, between the mech suit and the monsters. And so it's going to be fun. And I think the next issue is the last one. I think it's only a 3-part series. So I love your face. Every time I talk about it, you're like, what? Up next, we have not this, because I think this might have been the end. Oh no, was it? Oh yeah, it was. Okay. Oh well, that's fine. We're at ending type things, so I guess I'll do this next, and I'm gonna try to not talk about it incredibly much because once again Matt hasn't read it. But up next is Ice Cream Man issue 35, and if you told me this was the end of Ice Cream Man, I would actually 100% believe you. So I don't know. I tried to find anything on W. Maxwell Prince's Instagram and on Image's website that said Ice Cream Man was going to continue, and I couldn't find anything. So this is, personally, if it was me, this is where I would leave it. I think this is the best thing you could possibly have done, but this is the story of a man who is writing a book of necessary monsters. And in it, we actually relive a lot of the monsters, and by monsters, I mean existential crises and things like that that we have experienced throughout Ice Cream Man. And I don't want to show you much of any of those monsters, but he kind of goes through all of the different things, and we kind of see a lot of flashback moments. If you've been paying attention to Ice Cream Man the whole time, you know that like the things in the wallpaper mean something, and this so-and-so connects to so-and-so, and this connects to this, and this is the story. This guy, this writer, the whole time he's trying to tell us about the book that he's writing, and he's giving us these clues in each little thing, and his family is calling to him the whole time. He just keeps talking about how it's impossible to be a writer when people are like harassing you, but he loves his family and he knows that they just want to be supportive. And I'm not going to show you anything else, but again, honestly, if I was writing Ice Cream Man, this would be the last issue that I made, and it's a fantastic issue because they all are. But one of the things that made me wonder is there's actually no wallpaper backing page. There is no teaser for what comes in the next issue. There's no wallpaper page. There's nothing. And so this could be the end. I don't know. And W. Maxwell Prince does have a new series coming out starting in August. That's a new anthology series. So are we done? I don't know. W. Maxwell Prince, if you're watching, please tell me, because again, if this is the end, I'm okay with that. And the funny thing is, you know, he had 1 week in the library where he talked about he didn't know how to end the book, so he just kind of wrote himself into it, and it was like, this is what I would do. And then this is all about a writer writing a book about monsters and existential dread. And I'm like, did you just 1 week in the library, the ending of Ice Cream Man? Because I kind of thought you would. I don't know. But if you read this book, this particular issue, and you've been reading Ice Cream Man all along, please come in and talk to me about it, because I don't know if I'm okay if this is the ending, but I don't know if I'm okay with Ice Cream Man ending. There we go. I'm putting this over here because Matt's just going to take it. A for sure ending is Hex Ware, issue 6 from Image Comics. This is the story of a family that lives in upper class in this world that, you know, in our world, where they're at the top and all of the people who don't have any money live on the lower levels of the city, and the city's kind of not doing well. And at the very beginning of the story, somebody attacks the upper class and bombs their house, and the young daughter is killed. And the android, the witchware bot that helps out in the house, feels bad because she can't do anything to help the family, so she decides the only thing she can do is do some black magic that possesses her android body with the spirit of the young girl who was killed. And so she has been trying to solve the murder of herself, but at the same time she's also trying to learn to be there for her family. And she's dealing with all these monstrous creatures because Tim Seeley wrote this and he loves to add monsters to everything, and I'm okay with that. He's dealing with some monsters who are the ones who can kind of help us stop the problem of the people who are revolting against the city and kind of try to put everything back together again. And this went in so many different directions, none of which were the ones that I thought this book would go. But number one, I saw Nick make a comment earlier about like Shannon's next cosplay. No, Shannon's next cosplay, if she ever makes another cosplay, and she is me, so who knows, is the Hex Ware costume of Witchware. Witchware has the coolest costume. You can see it right there in the center of the thing. If I'm ever going to make another costume, I'm just going to start going around as Hexware's Witchware, or Jessamy, whatever you want to call her, because it's so cool. Anyway, if you didn't read that, check it out, but it will probably be in a trade very soon. Also ending this week is Little Monsters. This is issue 13 from Image Comics. I've kind of been wondering like where they were going with this and how they were going to end it, and another one of those where I'm like, I'm kind of sad to see it go, but I also think that you nailed your ending if this is the ending, and it is. But this is the story of a bunch of kids who were turned into vampires and then left to their own devices, because as vampires don't necessarily, in our, we don't necessarily think about vampires dying, but in this series they do eventually get old and kind of wander off to deteriorate and die. And because these kids are kids, it's going to be thousands and thousands of years before they get to that point. And as children, they've found their first ever human, and they've never tasted human blood, and they are determined to eat this human. And they kind of have an adult human that they get a little taste of, and now they are going after the young girl, daughter of that human, and are trying to figure out how they can eat her. But of course they're at odds, because there are some of the kids who want to live by what they were taught, and there are some who want to eat this girl. And they have all been kind of trying to figure out what that means for them, and how to keep their group together or not keep their group together, and how to save this girl or eat this girl the whole time. And decisions were made in this book, and it's fantastic. I love the ending. I love how they resolve each character's story arc. They all kind of get a little moment, and I love everything about it. It was so great. And I love Dustin Nguyen's black and white art with those little splashes of red just for the blood. It makes for such a great way to tell a vampire story. And Dustin Nguyen's so great at drawing kids in these like worlds that are like apocalyptic and stuff. So just, it made for such a beautiful story. If you didn't check it out, check it out. But all right, so some things that are starting. I'm first going to start out with some new arcs. One of them being Masquerade issue 5 from Dark Horse's Secret Stash Comics, which is Kevin Smith's imprint. This is returning, so we've had volume 1. If you didn't get it, we've got single issues. You can get a trade soon. But this is the story of a woman who has one of those gotcha-style reporter journalism shows, but she actually does it by wearing what they call this mask technology that has been created that helps cover her face. And instead of just using it to make like scars on her face beautiful and things like that, she has been using it to completely disguise who she is and attack different people. And there's some stuff that happens. This is probably fine. There's not actually like nudity or anything, but it's kind of spoilery. But she, in this particular issue, she has finally found the people who are responsible for all of the bad things that happened in her life. And so basically everything she's been working for is to come after these particular people. And she's got them where she wants them now, but she has to make some decisions on how to do it. And she doesn't make the best decisions. We see in so many stories where they have these perfect plans and they follow through with them. And you're always like, would that really have happened that way? Like, could you have nailed every single beat? She doesn't. She lets her emotions get the better of her. She completely destroys her plan. Like, everything falls apart in every possible way. And yet she still just kind of keeps going because she's like, I have to destroy these people. And so you get this emotional rage towards the concept instead of actually like a well-defined plan. And honestly, it's that has drawn me into the story more than a lot of the like first 4 issues. Like the first 4 issues, I thought the concept was really great and I wanted to see where it went. But seeing her fall apart instead of being so calculated and decisive has actually been like the best part of the story so far. Because this is a woman who's had it way too together for how emotionally and physically scarred she was. So I'm glad that we're getting like a broken character now. Also, kind of starting a new part of the adventure, possibly a new arc, I think it is the beginning of the new arc, is Earth Divers, because now we are in the Ice Age. So volume 1 was called Kill Columbus, and this, if you followed volume 1, it was the story of a group of Native American people in our time period, or a little bit further in the future from us, who were, it's IDW.
No, they actually call it issue 7.
They call it issue 7, but it's issue 1 of volume 2. So this is, they were in the future, and they realized that the future, like, all of America has been destroyed. Everything is terrible. They need to fix it. They need to right the past somehow. And in Volume 1, they realized the best thing to do is just to go back and, like, kill Christopher Columbus before he ever, quote-unquote, discovered America and changed the future of things entirely. And in the first volume, they were working really hard to do that by sending one person back in time. Well, now the people who have been stuck here in our time have been like, hey, did we actually solve the problem? And in the process of it, towards the end of Volume 1, one of them gets knocked into the cave that allows you to teleport, like, to the past, and you can't really, like, come back. It's a one-way mission. And this person got knocked all the way back to the Ice Age. And so now they are in the Ice Age, and they are having to deal with not only, like, all of the animals, but they have determined that it is true that the French people came across the ice and actually came to America long before the Christopher Columbus and his people ever did. Like, that during the Ice Age, lots of people came across the different continental, like, shelves and things like that. And so she is having to face that, and she's trying to stop them and also get connected with her people. But in the process of it, she finds a young boy who is on his own and he's hurt, and her motherly instincts take over, and she thinks, like, maybe she knows for a fact that it's not her lost son, but she's like, I have to help this kid. And in it, she kind of indirectly aligns herself with the wrong side, and now she is dealing with the fallout of that. This is going to be such a great arc. I loved Volume 1, but I think seeing this woman, like, in the Ice Age who has no idea what's going on and has no allies at all is going to once again make for some really great story. Thank you, Matt. And the Earth Divers Volume 1 trade isn't out yet, so if you didn't read it, you kind of have to go back into the single issues for a little bit longer, but I think that trade should probably be available pretty soon. So,
do you need to read part 1?
As of issue 7, no. It's gonna have, because if you just know what I just said, where it's like a woman got put back in there, and they do a little recap in and of that self, like, hey, this is where we are, and then she gets thrown back into time. So, not really, but it would definitely make the story more well-rounded if you read Volume 1, because it is all one group of people, and now, like, one person has gone to the Columbus days, and another person has gone to the Ice Age, so, up next, we have Maleficent issue 1 from Dynamite and their new Disney Villains line. Started with Scar. We've had 2 issues of Scar so far, and now we're on to Maleficent. I cannot wait to see House Laboring. If you have suggestions on what Disney villain you'd like to see, I would love to hear that. Because I think Disney has, much like Batman and his rogues gallery, I think Disney has a great gallery of rogues for sure. And this is Maleficent, who is the queen of all of them. And this is the story of a young boy who's decided he doesn't want the life that his family has given him, and he wanders off into the woods. And while doing that, he runs into Maleficent, and he's like, you have such amazing, incredible power. Like, I would love to have your power. Is it in your staff? And she's like, no, you ridiculous boy, it's in me. Like, this is just a cool staff. Like, it doesn't do anything. Like, I have all the power. And she's like, but I will give you a gift for being on your own and for being so brave and for recognizing that power. And she gives him a compass, much like Jack Sparrow's, where it's like, it'll lead you to whatever you most desire. And he asks it to lead him to Maleficent and plans to steal her staff. And I don't know about you, but if there's, like, one villain in the Disney, like, pantheon of villains that I'm not gonna cross, it's the woman who literally cursed an entire country for 100 years because she didn't get invited to a party.
But you don't know that.
But maybe you don't know that because this is, like, maybe it's pre-Evora. I don't know where this falls in the timeline, but if I did know that, this is probably not the woman I'd want to mess with. So, we'll see.
She also turns into a dragon, right?
She does. She turns into a dragon. She is the coolest. Like, she is such a cool villain. I love Maleficent so much. She was actually the only one as a child that I was afraid of, which meant to me that she was obviously the coolest. But I always thought, like, also, way to teach kids the difference between like the Seelie and the unseelie court of fairies, like indirectly, because you had the nice cutesy fairies that did all the great stuff and raised Aurora, and then you had this fairy that turned into a dragon and killed people and cursed them just because they were mad. And I was like, oh, as an adult, when I learned about all the fairy lore, I was like, wow, they basically taught us that as children in the Disney universe without ever using those words. I saw that Nick said he would like to see Oogie Boogie. Yes, I think that would be cool. I would like to see a Madame Mim from The Sword and the Stone. I think that she's also another really cool one, and I'd love to see her story. And I had somebody in store say they would like a Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog, who is super cool because he's the shadow man and he does all the voodoo magic and has the shadow side, like has all the shadows and everything that he works with. So I definitely think I would love to see Facilier get one, but I'm always gonna vote for Madame Mim, who's like should be this really dark, like on the Maleficent level, but it's kind of just like a dopey woman in the woods who's like, oh, I'm gonna turn into like a hippopotamus to attack you. I love that lady. Up next, we have Capable, issue 1 from Advent Comics, and this is Jonathan Hedrick's new book. And I know this is one that he's been working on for a while, where he had, I think, a digital version of it before he ever put out this one. I think it at least went on Kickstarter. But this is the story of a world where it follows a young boy and his best friend, and the one of the boys is in a wheelchair and the other one is on crutches. And of course they get picked on and bullied all the time in school, and they talk about, and there's a lot of like slurs and stuff in here where they make fun of them and talk about the different things, like make mean jokes about them, but which it is labeled for mature readers. But they wake up the next day and everybody on Earth who has been disabled in some way and who has been suffering from different things like disease. I think it has diseases too, but anyway, if people who have been struggling in different ways suddenly are now superheroes. And so if you were in a wheelchair, if you're on crutches, if you had like a broken leg, if you had any kind of physical ailment, essentially, like you now have a superpower that's kind of connected to that. And the friend who was on crutches is like, hey, we have to use these superpowers to help people. And the one boy was like, I'm going to use them to help the girl that I think is really cute. And we kind of see that Spider-Man style story of, if I just get powers and I use them for my own selfish gain, does it get me anywhere? And do I want to go in that direction? And we kind of see the concept of, if, we are just people who just got superpowers and we're like running into these dangers and things like that, like, do we know what we're doing? We see a lot of that immediately. Jonathan Hedrick has, like I said, he's been talking about this project for a long time. I know it's really near and dear to his heart, and so I can't wait to see what he does with it. Up next, we have Jinx, A Cursed Life from Chilling Adventures Archie Horror, and this is a one-shot about Jinx, who is, normally speaking, just like one of the younger girls in the Archie world. She's 14. She's kind of like in the like jelly bean like age range. She's one of the, like I said, the younger girls. But in this particular issue, we find out that Jinx wants to start a band, and Jinx has no musical ability at all. And she's like, hey, I really want to start this band, and her friend are just like playing around and they're not good. And Archie comes up and is like, hey, I need your help. I think Jughead's possessed by the devil, and since you're the child of Satan, I figured you could help us out. And she's like, I'm not the child of Satan. And Archie's like, I will give you anything. And she's like, can I get one of your sweet guitars? Like, I will totally help exorcise a demon from Jughead if you give me a guitar. So she gets this guitar, and I love that scene that I just showed you, because she's like, opens it up in the rain, and Archie's like, come on, like, you're gonna open it in the rain, like he's so actually like a musician about it. But Jinx goes over to Jughead's house, and she's like, he's definitely not possessed. And then you see Jughead, and he is obviously possessed. But I love that Jughead being possessed is still covered in cheeseburgers. Like, shirtless, covered in cheeseburgers is a possessed Jughead. And she finds out that he is possessed by the demon that is supposed to be her father. And she's like, ugh, you're not my dad. Stop it. Like, I don't have to listen to you. A dad is somebody who, like, is there for me. And you're just the devil. Like, you're not a good dad. and she ends up in this fight with the devil, trying to exorcise him from her dad. And of course she's like, let me do it with my sweet musical skills. And she rocks out to try to stop the devil and save Jughead's life. And it's wonderful. I don't care. I love the Chilling Adventures books because they, you know, we went really, really hard with Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. We went as dark as possible. But we now are kind of like going more in that Jughead the Hunger and Vampironica, where it's like, okay, we're going to bring the Archie hijinks into horror and go really campy. And it's been great. And I love this one. So, you know, check it out. Up next, we have Violet Descends. I always want to say Violent Descent, but it's Violet Descends. Issue 1 from Blood Moon Comics. And I love the premise of this book. I spent a lot of time talking about this book this week to people because I thought it was such a cool concept. But this is the story of 7 archangels who are supposed to guide the fate of humanity. And one of them, Violet, is in charge of dealing with humans' emotions. And I don't know if you guys know this, but as humans, we have a lot of emotions and they're all over the place. And it's really, really stressful to be the person who has to like take in everybody else's emotions. And Violet gets over it. And she's like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. So she quits. And all the other gods, or not gods, all the other archangels are having to deal with all the different things. And they're like, hey, looks like it's the end of the world. Does anybody know what's going on? Can somebody figure it out? And it turns out it's the end of the world because Violet quit, and now there's nobody to harness the emotions of all the people, and terrible things are happening. And Violet's like, yeah, I'm not coming back. I don't care. I hate all of you, and I hate humanity, and I don't want to deal with it. And whose problem is that? Not hers, as far as she's concerned. I love the character design for each of the archangels. I love the way they represented the different things that they gave them. I love that Violet would just quit and she would just move on with her life. And this is such a great story. Once again, Blood Moon is just pulling out some really good stories for us and bringing them to us in great ways. And this is another one. So if you didn't grab issue 1, highly recommend that you grab issue 1 of this immediately and check it out. Also new this week, we've got Arcade Kings, issue 1 from Image Comics, Skybound imprint. And this is one that I know a lot of people were waiting for because it's the new Dylan Burnett book. And a lot of people were like, oh, is that finally out? Like, when does Arcade Kings come out? It's here. And it is an oversized book. Like, it's actually pretty almost square bound. I mean, it actually is square bound in its style. But what do you need?
I don't know who Dylan Burnett was. I thought it was going to tell me.
Oh, no. He did a bunch of books, I'll tell you.
Okay.
But this is the story of a guy who just shows up one day at an arcade and is the master of all the games. Nobody can beat him. And he's like, I'm not gonna throw down. I'll throw down with anybody and I'll never lose. And within that, he just he wears a helmet and he's kind of hiding who he is and nobody really knows anything about him. And he's only supposed to be there for a couple weeks. And one day somebody shows up. It is like, hey, I'll challenge you and I'll destroy you. And if I do, you have to return to your father. And he's like, I don't want to. And they're like, what if I beat you? Like, you'll leave me alone and you'll never come back? And they're like, yeah, of course. And then they battle in a video game to see what's going to happen. And he learns that his little brother, who he used to work really hard to protect from his dad and all the things that his dad was doing to them, is now in danger. And so he has to, whether he wants to go back or not, he may have to go back to try to save his little brother. It's very Scott Pilgrim in a lot of the art style and a lot of the storytelling. So if you're a fan of Scott Pilgrim, I think this is definitely going to be a book that you enjoy. It's definitely it's like Scott Pilgrim meets Pixels. And I know you're all like not a fan of Pixels. I think I was the only person who thought that movie was kind of adorable. But this is, I mean, it's got all of the love of video games and arcades. It's got the heart of, I have to defeat my evil enemies in order to save what I care about. And it's just got some really cool bright colors and art. So honestly, like if you didn't grab this book this week, come in and check it out, especially if you're a video game fan. If you are a fan of any of the classic arcades, this is going to be a game that you, or a book that you want to play along with. So up next, we have Miss Truesdale and the Fall of Hyperborea, issue 1 from Dark Horse. You could just say Miss Truesdale. This is a part of your Hellboy universe, and so if you are like me and you've never read all of Hellboy, but you like the universe, I think that all of these Hellboy universe books are the best way to just like fall in love, like in 2 issues to 4 issues with the characters without having to go through the whole entire like 30-year lore of Hellboy. And now I feel like I'm almost like an expert of all of the secondary characters of the Hellboy universe because I love these so much. But Miss Truesdale follows, in fact, a character by the same name. And she is, at the beginning of the story, she's in Paris and she's talking to a person with her. And she's like, do you ever think about your past lives and the things that you did? And then it kind of goes back in time to her past life when she was serving as a warrior, essentially a gladiator in an arena. And a person that she meets and she's like, I think that you need to get away from all this. And they're like, no, you're my hero, you're so wonderful, you're amazing with all the battles you do. And then she kind of tells the story of how she ended up there then. And we just kind of see this connection of this quiet woman who is Miss Truesdale and this spirit inside of her who is this mighty warrior who is willing to fight to stand up for anything. And it kind of sets up wherever we're going with this story of Miss Truesdale being somebody who in the now, while it may be like a proper Victorian woman, is going to be fighting for injustices in some way. So really cool. And again, great way to find out about the Hellboy universe, even if you don't know anything about the Hellboy universe. And then our last new number 1 is Grit and Gears from Blood Moon Comics. I put this last because it's another one of those books I've talked about a lot this week, and I almost threw it in my picks of the week as well, just because I really like the concept and the art, which is pretty much everything it takes to be a pick of the week. But I also really like the concept and art of all books because I just love comic books. Again, it was terrible this week. I just wanted everything to be a pick of the week. But this is the story of a steampunk world. It's 1879, and we are in the Old West. And we've developed automatons, and we make one particular automaton whose name is Ranger 1, and he is the first self-aware robot, and he's programmed to eradicate crime and violence. And in that time, they then decide, oh, we're going to make additional robots like based on him now that he works so well. And so they create a whole bunch of automatons, and of course, one is fine, but multiples, the robots take over. And so now the robots have gone crazy and out of hand, and Ranger 1, they come to him and they say, you're the only one who can save everybody, you're the hero that we need. And so now it's that lone gunman story, like the warrior who's out on his own in the Old West, the like rugged cowboy that they got to bring back in. It's that, but he is a robot. And so it's super cool because he's like, I don't really want to get back into it. Like, you get all the normal reluctant hero. Like, I'm not going to get into that. That's y'all's battle, not mine. I'm retired. And yet here he has to come to save the day. And it was so good. I definitely recommend picking this up. This is, it's not as like crazy, like violent and like big and over the top as Bone Check was, but I think if you like that book, you still might find some of the same elements in it that you like, with that same like the bright oranges and the blacks and colors, and then the Old West feel to it. So check it out.
I just looked that word up. It's actually automaton.
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 Yeah.
You were saying automaton. Automaton. It's crazy.
But it has a U in it. It's like automaton.
Yeah.
Automaton. Yeah. I feel like I said it right once earlier. I don't know.
It's a weird one. It's a weird word.
I feel like I got it right some of the time. I got it right today during the store being open, but... Automaton. Yeah. Robot. Robots in disguise, but not disguised. I don't know. He's kind of disguised. He's got the poncho and stuff. All right, so we got some picks of the week. And there are some great books, and I don't even know where to start, so I'm just going to start. Up first, The Seasons Have Teeth, issue 2 from Boom Studios. Issue 1 was a pick of the week. Issue 2 is still a pick of the week. I love this book. I love everything about this book. This is the story of a man who has kind of lost everything. He's an older man. He's lost the love of his life. He's kind of like losing his home. He's lost really his job. And the whole thing was that when he was younger, he wanted to be a war reporter, and he went on one mission, and war was too much for him. And it kind of changed everything, and that's kind of like how he lost everything along the way, and he's just been playing it safe his whole life. And now he has decided he wants to be the person who gets the seasons on camera, and he's going into these war zones because in this universe the seasons are kaiju, and they literally leave destruction in their wake as they try to change the seasons from spring to summer and this and that. And so he is traveling around the world, and in this issue he teams up with all the best journalists in the world as they get taken in to go and take pictures, and they're told like their job is just to take pictures of people who are suffering and being like are responding to, you know, how is the season affecting these people. But of course, as journalists are, they try to sneak off and get the best pictures, and him and the guy who is completely judgmental to him both go off together. And I say every time that I'm never going to show you the kaiju, and then I show you every time anyway, but look at this. This is summer. So cool. And so he's like, I'm going to get these pictures, and I don't care if I die in the process because I've got nothing else to live for, but I want to be the one who says they caught every single season on film. And I don't know if we're going to only get 4 issues, or like maybe we'll get 4 issues and then like a 5th one to like wrap it up because there are only 4 seasons. But I love the design work of these kaiju seasonal monsters, and I love this guy's story. I love his determination to just like, hey, it doesn't matter how old I am, I can do anything, and like I'm gonna do this, and yet still like fighting against the tide to be the one to do it. So read The Seasons Have Teeth, and do it soon because I don't know how many copies I have left because I keep telling people to read it. So check it out. Launching this week, we had Good Deeds #1, which is from IDW, and it's part of the Dark Spaces imprint from Scott Snyder, which is super cool that Scott Snyder has an imprint. I don't think we've really talked about that much, but he has a Dark Spaces imprint. So we're going to get some cool horror stories from him finding people to write them. So the first one was Wildfire, and that was Scott Snyder writing, and Hayden Sherman on art. I almost said Hayden Christensen. This is a completely new story from different people, and it follows a woman who is a journalist who has made some bad mistakes in her career. Like, she told a story that ended up not being true, and so now she's kind of bottom rung of the journalist ladder, and they send her to St. Augustine, Florida to just do the basic tourism, go check it out, give us a write-up, why should people go to the oldest city in America, like what's so great about it. But they're like, but if you're there and you discover a real story and you want to work your way back to the top, like her friend's like, I'm not gonna be mad at you. Meanwhile, at the same time, a mother and a daughter end up moving to St. Augustine, and they are taking over a restaurant. And the guy that they're taking over from is not good. He is like seedy and shady in all of the ways that instantly send like horror movie red flags down your spine. And some bad things happen to everybody involved, and paths cross, and we have a great setup for a great story where we're going to see like ghosts, but we're also going to see humans being bad, and we're going to see a lot of things become uncovered very quickly in this story, and maybe some supernatural stuff too. I'm already in. You mixed all the right things, and the fact that it takes place in St. Augustine, I was like, great, I'm sold. Let's do this. Good Deeds #1. I'm in. You should be too. Ending this week, but some very big news. is the Atonement Bell, issue 4 from Red 5 Comics. And I'm so excited to say that the Atonement Bell is nominated for an Eisner Award, which again is the comic book industry's Oscars, for Best New Series. So congratulations to the entire creative team and Red 5 for the Atonement Bell getting nominated for an Eisner. It is such a great category. I think it's the only category that's entirely indie books, but I screamed in the store when I saw that Red 5 was on the list, and then I saw that it was the Atonement Bell, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I think I told literally everybody that walked in, so much so that a guy came up to me when he was checking out and was like, did I hear you say that you were nominated for some kind of an award? I was like, oh no, not me at all. It's a book that I just really like, and I'm so excited that it was nominated for an award. So congratulations, because this is fantastic. So if you don't know the Atonement Bell, this is the story of a young boy and his mom who come to visit his aunts and his cousin. And when they get there, the aunt's super religious, and she's like, I gotta go to church, y'all gotta come with me, it's the holidays, you owe me. And so they go to church with the aunt, and while they're there, the main boy finds out that the church is connected to a cult, and the cult sacrifices young kids, and guess what? He just happens to be marked as the person who they're gonna sacrifice. And so him and his cousin and their best friend from that week that they're hanging out determine all of the things that they have to figure out, and they have to solve the mystery in order to save his life and to put everything back as normal as possible. And things get really, really dark, and we saw a lot of really cool character design in issue 1 for some of these cult-related creatures and monsters that come out of the woodwork in this book. But it's such a well-done book. I'm so excited for them to have this nomination. Issue 1 was one of our picks of the week. I think issue 2 might have been too, but it has been so great to follow along with this story, and the ending of it, they nailed it in all of the right ways. So Read of the Atonement Bell, 4 issues, they're all 4 out. I wouldn't be surprised if a trade comes soon, but if you don't want to wait, get on there. Lastly, this was originally supposed to be single issues, and there were so many people who read the previews that were like, I cannot wait between issues for this, that they decided to just release it as graphic novels, and that is Gatsby from AWA. So this is volume 1, and I believe we're getting 3, might just be 2. It feels like we broke at the 2 point, but I think they said it was going to be 3. And so this is, honestly, this is most of the Gatsby story. But this is a modern retelling of The Great Gatsby. It takes place in the now, because if you didn't know, we're in the 2020s, so we're all in the 20s again. But it is all about a young boy who he's coming to America because he's about to start college, and he wants to get there a summer earlier so he can kind of learn what it's like. So he goes to stay with his very, very, very rich cousin. Who is the Tom, if you've read The Great Gatsby. Instead of his cousin being Daisy, his cousin is Tom. And they go to a party at Gatsby's house, and our main character, Lou, meets Gatsby, and they develop a friendship. And he finds out that all of the things that adventure and crazy cool stuff that we see in Gatsby comes to life. Instead of in the novel where Tom has a drinking problem and he's, cheating on Daisy and is an alcoholic, we actually see that there's a lot of drug addiction in this. This has, instead of Gatsby having made his fortune in different businesses, Gatsby has actually made his fortune in creating a social media that everybody in the rich community uses. And so it's a very high elite social media system that people are using. It takes all of the things and modernizes all of them, but you still get all of the elements. And honestly, halfway through, you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't actually how The Great Gatsby went. This is definitely a modern retelling, because you get so lost in the fact that it is very much like the Gatsby story. And one of the things that Jeremy Holt, who's the writer of it, said was he actually never wanted to read The Great Gatsby. It wasn't required reading in his school, so he never read it. in middle school or high school, and then he got to modern times and he was like, I want to read all of these classics and just kind of go down these rabbit holes, and he ended up reading Gatsby and was like, how would that work in a world like now where we all want to reinvent ourselves? We make up these personas on the internet, but at the same time your whole entire life is public knowledge, so you can't really reinvent yourself. Like, everything gets outed. But the whole point of the story is that Gatsby has the secret identity and has created a different world for himself. And so I really love the way he was able to put that in there. I love the changes he made, and yet the entire spirit of the book is 100% still there. I love how diverse the story is. There is a foreword in it from Billy Porter, who, if you've ever seen Kinky Boots or the musical or anything, there's so many things that he did that was like that. But he actually seems to be kind of the inspiration for the design for Gatsby in a lot of ways. And he talks about just what it was like to be him and trying to invent a persona and before the story actually starts. And so this is a fantastic book. Again, all of the changes are wonderful. And if you haven't read it, if you didn't grab it this week, you should definitely grab it soon if you're a Gatsby fan, because it's great retelling. And it's AWA, so you know you're getting an awesome story.
But it's different from that one that just came out.
It is, because the one that just came out was actually it was just an adaptation, like a straight graphic novel adaptation of The Great Gatsby. This is a retelling. So, this is modernizing the story. But, okay. So we've got a lot of books in stock. I'm going to fly through them really fast for you. First up, House of Slaughter issue 15 is leading us towards the end of this arc of House of Slaughter. So if you're Something Killing the Children fan, you need to be reading that and seeing what is going on with Jace. I got lots of feels in that issue. X-Force issue 40 out this week. We've got X-Men issue 22, and we've got the launch of the Marvel Corner Box variants. I believe Mark Brooks is doing these, and they're all going to have, there's going to be a variant for Avengers and X-Men for like the rest of the year, essentially. That's going to have all the different characters featured in different corner box style things to honor the 60th anniversary of both Avengers and X-Men. Wonder Woman issue 799. Next up is Wonder Woman 800. If you want Wonder Woman 800, please let us know. I ordered it 4 hours ago, so let me know immediately if you want it, because that is going to be a big anniversary issue for Wonder Woman. But not only that, it is the issue that Tom King is going to step into writing on. It's going to be a crossover issue. We're going to see some from Becky and Michael, and then Tom's going to take over like the story as well. And it is also the first appearance of Trinity. It's going to be a future story where we're going to see a little bit of teenage Wonder Woman's daughter. We're going to learn a little bit about her, and then we're going to back up when we get into Tom King's story and see how Wonder Woman has a child. So I'm so excited to see what Tom King does with that. Next up, Venom issue 19, and this one is still going with that Al Ewing, like Ram B kind of crossover. Dawn of DC brought us Superboy back, the Connor Kent Superboy, and this is Man of Tomorrow issue 2. We've got Superman issue 4 in the Dawn of DC, and I just absolutely love this cover with Livewire on it. I love that the villains in this have been Silver Banshee and Livewire. So great. Star Wars Bounty Hunters issue 34. This is the cool Return of the Jedi cover. Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 6. Carnage Reigns storyline going in here. I love that Miles is getting his own little Maximum Carnage run going on. We've got Gunslinger Spawn issue 20. We've got She-Hulk issue 13, the book that was supposed to only be a miniseries that has now been expanded 3 times. Super excited about that. We've got Planet of the Apes issue 2, and you've got all of these like 20th Century Studios logos coming in on Predator, Alien, and Planet of the Apes to remind you that while they are a Marvel property, they don't necessarily connect to the stuff going on. We have Guardians of the Galaxy issue 2. Once again, don't post spoilers in the comments because nobody likes the person who spoils the movie for other people, and those people being me. Danny Ketch, Ghost Rider issue 1. Danny Ketch is back. There are also graphic comic boxes for this series. So if you're a Danny Ketch Ghostwriter fan and you've been waiting for your graphic box, it is out now. Fantastic Four issue 7 or issue 700. We are celebrating 700 issues of Fantastic Four. There were a lot of really cool covers, and I know people were really stoked about getting 700 issues of Fantastic Four. Flash issue 799, also coming up on 800 issues of the Flash. I love this Granny Goodness attacking him situation. We don't get enough Granny Goodness in this world. Catwoman issue 55 with the Sweeney Boo cover of her fighting laser lights, and I always think that it's her fighting with a ball of yarn, because I just want the giant cat story going on. Bloodline, Daughter of Blade, issue 4. There's a lot of hype around this in the very beginning. You should definitely be checking out the story too, because I know there's some really cool stuff happening in it. Black Adam, issue 11. That is still going, so if you didn't know that there is still a Black Adam book going on, you should be checking it out. Batman Superman World's Finest issue 15. This is one of your big spec books this week because there's some new characters in here that you want to make sure you don't miss out on. Batman Brave and the Bold is back. This is issue 1 of Brave and the Bold. So get on that now. Let your store know you want it. Avengers are also back. We have finally reached the end of Jason Aaron's run, and Jed MacKay has taken over the Avengers. And I know there's been so much love for Jed MacKay on Black Cat, on Black Cat Mary Jane, on Moon Knight. He is now at the helm of the Avengers, and we're going to see what he does with that. I know a lot of people have been like, why hasn't he taken over Spider-Man yet? But he went Avengers, so. Masters of the Universe Masterverse issue 4 is out this week. Red Room Crypto Killers #1 is out this week for all of you Red Room fans. Make sure you don't miss out on that. Red Goblin issue 4. This has been a long time since the last issue, but we are still going on Red Goblin. Predator issue 3. Again, this relaunched just so that we could put that 20th Century Studios logo on it and make sure you know that it's not connected. Titans issue 1. Tom Taylor has relaunched the Teen Titans as a part of the Dawn of DC. So all you Titans fans, now it's your chance. And speaking of that, Cyborg also relaunched this week, and I was so excited to see how many people were like, oh my god, Cyborg's getting a new title. Here it is. It's out. We also had, as a part of the Dawn of DC, The Vigil issue 1, and I love this. Is it on this cover? I don't think it is. It's not, but you can see the, like, We Are Legends is done in, you can see that it's also got, I don't know if you can see, you can't actually see because it's very tiny, but one of the things that they're doing with this book and Spirit World is because it is a diverse title, they're actually writing the names in the traditional characters. So We Are Legends has the traditional characters underneath it, and then on the main covers for this and Spirit World, there's actually like everybody's name in traditional characters as well, which I think is a super cool way to show that diversity and inclusion in the DC universe. Star Wars High Republic Adventures is the Nameless Terror issue 4 of 4. There's so many Star Wars High Republic Adventures spinoffs, and they're all good. And then The Fallen issue 3 came out this week. Issue 2 also dropped this week. So if you're wondering how we went from issue 1 to issue 3, it's because issues 2 and 3 came out on the same week. So you didn't miss it. It's here now. Read them both. Make sure you grab issue 2 if you are picking up issue 3, because I promise you don't already have issue 2. We also have a lot of trades out this week. Up first is Self. This is from Dark Horse, their Comixology original reprints. So, we see that a lot with Scott Snyder, where they're actually reprinting them in comic book form before they go to trade, but they are doing a lot of the Comixology books in trade form, like straight through. And this is the story of a girl named Nat who has this like amazing life. She's found the love of her life. He's a doctor. She's so excited about this great life that they build up. And then there is a program in this world called Postscript, and Postscript backs up everything about a person to like a server. So instead of just your iCloud taking all of your pictures, it takes all of your memories, like everything. And one day Nat is like walking up to dinner, like lunch with her friends, and they're all mad at her, and then she like goes back to work, and there's all these people like standing in the middle of her bookstore that she owns, and they're just reciting lines from conversations that she had with her mom, and it's really weird. And then all these people just keep showing up, like her bank account gets hacked, everything she does just like keeps getting messed up, and it turns out that somebody has stolen her entire identity, like not just her credit cards and her social security number, but everything about her. And now all of these people that are called blanks are coming after her, and they basically can move and talk and act exactly like her. And a crazy opening up of the world has started. I read like half of that today and was like, oh my gosh, I might not sell it because it's so good. Also out this week, we've been talking about how we started carrying the TKO Studios trades for all their books. They release their books either digitally or in subscription box, and the only way you can get them through the direct market is by getting them in trade paperback form. And so this is Black Mask Rising, and this is their new story, and this is 100 years after the death of Dracula, essentially. Things are finally starting to get happy in Transylvania, and they all have like this festival, and on the day of the festival, a new monster shows up, and everybody's like, oh my god, it's Dracula, he's back to kill us all, and things divulge from there, and stuff starts to get crazy. And at the same time, there's this healer that's in town, and everybody really trusts them to save everything, but maybe they're the reason this new evil is there. Also started this one today and was like, ooh, this is gonna get really creepy really fast, so check that out. New books in stock this week. I'm gonna do that one last. Lunar Ladies Volume 1 from Scout is out. If you've never read Lunar Ladies, I loved this book. This is all about a bunch of women who live on a planet that's like run by women. They only like create men for like scientific purposes. Like they don't even have women or men. They're only like, it's all women. And they end up having to come to Earth to figure out some things that could happen. And they have some dangers and things. I love it. It's very pulpy, and I'm going to show you the art a little bit just really quick. I don't want to crack this spine in case somebody wants to buy that. But it's very pulpy in the art. They even say it feels like ray guns and laser rays from the golden age of comics, and it's totally true. So if you didn't read it, this is a fantastic story, and you should check it out. Rogue Sun Volume 2 is out. This is issues 7 through 12 of Rogue Sun. This is part of your massive verse. Again, you don't have to read Radiant Black to enjoy this, but this is from Ryan Parrott, who was also on Power Rangers at the same time as Kyle Higgins. And this is the story of a boy whose estranged father was a superhero, and when he passes away, he leaves all of his tech to his son that he never spoke to, and now he is kind of the AI in his son's head, and they have to solve some murder mysteries and save the world together. Also out is Volume 1 of Flawed, and I love seeing that Volume 1 because I want to see some more of this. This is the story of Jim. She is a psychiatrist in a city where corruption, brutality, all kinds of things have happened, and she basically daredevils the situation. She meets with her clients and learns the information about the people that are hurting them and then goes after them. And we see her chase down one particular person who is the Skinwalker, and she kind of goes a little crazy trying to fight them. I love that they actually call it Frasier meets the Punisher. I love that as a description for this, but if you didn't read it and you're a fan of Daredevil or the Punisher, I think you should totally check it out. And then lastly, Dark Spaces Wildfire. So I mentioned the Dark Spaces imprint from Scott Snyder earlier. This is the first book that was on it, and it is all about a group of women who are prisoners in California who go out and to kind of like earn some money / reduce their sentence are working as wildfire fighters, which is actually a program that is real in the real world. And while they're doing that, they basically come up with an Ocean's 11 style plan to rob a house that's in the middle of the fire, but things go wrong very quickly. Honestly, one of the greatest things in there is you get these amazing Hayden Sherman panels and bright designs. It's such a cool book. I love Scott Snyder's way of talking about fire as an allegory for just the things that we go through in life. I love Hayden's artistic way of conveying all of that. It's so beautiful. If you haven't read this yet, please pick this up. It's so good. Should have been on the Eisner list, honestly. And speaking of, I'm gonna throw some of those at you really fast. I had it open, but I'm just gonna pull it up either way. We're going to have a whole long show, but I wanted to just say some shout outs really fast to some of the big issues, big things that happened, like Best Continuing Series, Daredevil from Chip Zdarsky got nominated, Department of Truth, Philadelphia, Nice House on the Lake, Nightwing by Tom Taylor and She-Hulk by Rainbow Rowell, all nominated for Best Continuing Series at the Eisners. Animal Castle, Batman One Bad Day, Human Target, Miracle Man, and Superman Space Age from Mark Russell and Mike Allred, all were nominated for Best Limited Series. Best New Series, like I said, was The Atonement Bell. Also included Love Everlasting, which we're huge fans of here at Public Domain from Chip Zdarsky, the new Star Trek title, and Traveling to Mars by Mark Russell. I'm going to skip really fast. I Hate This Place was nominated for Best Humor Publication, as was Killer Queens, and we are big fans of both of those books. And I am going to scroll down. Where did it go? Best Writer was Grace Ellis, who did Flung Out of Space, Tom King, Mark Russell, James Tynion, and Chip Zdarsky. Best Writer-Artist was Sarah Anderson from Cryptid Club, Kate Beaton from Ducks, 2 Years in the Oil Sands, SB from The Past, Junji Ito from All Things Manga, and Zoe Thurgood from It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth. Best Penciler was Jason Sean Alexander from Philadelphia, Alvaro Martinez Bueno from Nice House, Sean Phillips from all of the books from the Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips run, Bruno Redondo from Nightwing, Greg Smallwood from Human Target. I'm not going to go through everything. There's so many, but I do want to give a special shout out to our awesome friend Tim Smith, who was nominated for Best Academic Work for Best Scholarly Academic Work for Teaching with Comics. That is a book that we use in all of our programming, so I'm so excited to shout out Tim for getting that nomination. There are so many great books that are nominated for the Eisners. We're going to, of course, have the Small Press Shann talks about the Eisners show coming your way as we get closer to that day, so it gives you some time to check out some of those books and read them as the award show gets closer. They take place during San Diego Comic-Con, so it's cool because it's our version of the Oscars, and there's so many great books. If you want, you can check out our Instagram or our Facebook today. We did a quick little video of some of the books that are nominated that you should come into the store and check out, and we're going to keep doing that as we get closer to that time. Until then, make sure you're picking up all the new comics. You never know what's going to be the best book on the shelf, not just in general, but specifically for you. And we hope that you enjoy all of those. We will see you this Wednesday night at 7 for Book Club. We're going to be reading Isola #1, the Image First reprint, or if you have the original, you can read that. Like I said, starts at 7. It's free to join. It's $1 for the book. If you don't come for book club, we hope we still see you for New Comic Book Day. It's going to be an awesome week at Bad City and a great week for comics. Happy reading, everyone, and have a good night. Bye!